Hi, boys and girls. I'm home, and tonight I'm going to read again out of The Angel Tree. I'm not progressing as quickly as I thought I would, am I? I'm going to have Devin come over either tomorrow or Friday, and she wants to read to you also, so that will be fun. Um, Tell Mommy and Daddy we went to the movie today to see Manchester by the Sea. Really bad movie. But I've missed you guys, and I hope you had a good Christmas. I really meant to be back, but I had a little bit of a cold and my throat, and that was bothering me, so I just didn't read to you. And I'm not sure we'll get it done now by New Year's, but we'll try. So we are on chapter 11, and we still have only two people, Joe and Lucy, who had their wishes come true. And now they're trying to get a group together to figure out who makes the angel tree. So this is 15 days until Christmas. Max hated Joe. Hated him. The guy was a menace. If they hadn't been in Cinnamon's with half the town around, Max would have, but he couldn't do that to his family, not now. The thing he could do, though, was stay as far away from Joe as possible. That would mean missing out on finding GB. But at this point, Max didn't care. The only reason he had agreed to help was that it sounded fun to track down the mysterious person behind the tree. GB is the great benefactor, remember? Kind of like being a spy. Now, though, it was anything but fun. So he was out, and that was the end of it. He was annoyed with Cammie for asking Joe in the first place. And he honestly had no idea why Joe had agreed, seeing how much he obviously despised Max. Stalking through the snow, Max had reached the corner of Main Street and Church, and for a moment he glanced wistfully down Church, where the remains of his home stood. Then he sighed and headed down Montgomery toward the small apartment building next to Handyman Hardware. As he came up to the building, Max told himself that the apartment wasn't that bad. It was just small and dark, with mold in the corners, and a bathroom that reeked of mildew. Okay, maybe it was that bad. Max didn't really know. All he knew was how much he hated living there and how much he missed his home. He pulled open the heavy glass door and was surprised to see Mr. Pink bent over and squinting at the lobby mailboxes, his shiny bald head under the sharp fluorescent lights. "Max, just the person I'm looking for," Mr. Pink said, straightening up. For a moment, Max wondered if Mr. Pink had been eavesdropping at the bakery. "Really?" he asked, baffled that Mr. Pink wanted to talk to him. Mr. Pink laughed, and Max realized his response was less than polite. Good thing his mom hadn't overheard that. She was big with manners. "Yes, indeed," Mr. Pink said, straightening and rubbing his hands together. "I need a favor, and you're the one who can make it happen." "Okay," Max said, confused as to how he could possibly help Mr. Pink. "Do you think you could get your family to come to the Angel Tree tomorrow night at 7? Mr. Pink asked. "Why?" Max asked. He knew it wasn't the polite response, but he was too curious to worry about it. "Good, I've piqued your interest," Mr. Pink said, pulling a wool hat out of his pocket of his down jacket. "I assume that means your answer is a yes." He put the hat on and moved toward the door. "Yes," Max said. Mr. Pink gave him a thumbs up and headed out into the night, leaving Max staring after him and hoping against hope that the apartment would have something to do with his wish. Chapter 12, 15 days until Christmas. The frosty night bit into Joe as he walked home from Cinnamon's, the sweet taste of sugar still on his tongue. He hugged his thin jacket around. I'm trying to light this. He hugged his thin jacket around his shoulders, thinking about the afternoon and wondering if he really made the right choice to help find GB. If it had been weeks before, Joe would have turned Cammy down flat the second she revealed that Max was in on the project. But when his wish was granted, things changed. Or more accurately, they were going to have to change, because Joe had spent the last 5 months lying to his mom. And now that she was really and truly coming to Pine River, Joe was going to have to twist some of his lies into the truth. Although Joe liked to remember the good things about his life in Virginia, his mom making peanut brittle for their weekly movie nights, friends coming over after soccer, walks through the woods outside town, certain things that had been hard, and they all boiled down to one thing: money. After his dad had taken off, leaving them in terrible debt, his mom simply couldn't make enough to cover their bills. They cut corners, patching old clothes instead of getting new ones, and walking to avoid having to put gas in the car. But first the electricity was shut off, then the gas. And then they were on the verge of being kicked out of their house. That was when Joe's mom sat down and explained that she needed to make a hard decision. It would be tough on both of them, but she was going to enlist in the Marines. Money would be tight for the next few years as they paid off their debt, and she served, but the work she was doing was important, worth the sacrifice. There were other things she might have done to make money, but this was the one she believed in, fighting for the country she loved, and in the end it would help them both. Joe had readily agreed. He accepted leaving everything he loved to live with Uncle Leon, and going to a strange school where everyone hated him. He learned to block out his fears that his mother would be harmed in the line of duty, and he had even accepted that there was no way to spend Christmas with his mother, that despite her 5-day leave to the base in Florida, they could not afford a plane ticket to northern Pennsylvania. But now, thanks to the angel tree, they could, which was amazing but also a problem. Do you want to come over for dinner? Joe looked up, but of course the boy was talking to his friend, not Joe. Joe was passing Dobbs Hill, where a bunch of kids were out sledding, shrieking as they flew down the icy hill, then milling around at the bottom, talking and making plans to hang out together. Yeah, let me just call my mom, the other boy answered. No one noticed as Joe passed by, a slight shadow under the glowing streetlights. And this, of course, was Joe's problem. His mom believed that Joe loved Pine River, that he had friends over all the time, and that he hadn't been happier. She believed these things because that's what Joe had told her. If she knew the truth, she would be concerned about him, and that wouldn't be right. Joe told her stories of his good friends and good times in Pine River to make her happy, so she could focus on staying alive and not worry about her son back home. Until now, when she was actually coming to Pine River and would see that not only was Joe friendless, he was hated. So when Cammy asked if she could help out with finding GB, Joe had jumped at the chance to do something he could tell his mom about, something that involved other people. Sure, he was happy to thank GB, who had given him the best gift ever, but he'd never agreed to a plan involving Max if it wasn't for his mom. Joe had reached the rundown building that housed a laundromat on the first floor and 2 small apartments above. He looked up and saw that the windows in Leon's apartment were dark. Joe never knew how to talk to Leon, who usually came home late and mostly pretended Joe wasn't there, so that was a relief. But as Joe climbed the narrow, rickety stairs, There was a feeling hollow in his chest that came from one too many dinners alone. The emptiness that was Joe's whole life was exactly what his mom could never see. And so, as he turned the key in the lock and opened the door to the smell of old socks and burnt burgers, Joe vowed to keep meeting Cammie and Lucy and do whatever he could to stay connected to something in Pine River, something that would make his mother happy. Chapter 13, 14 Days Until Christmas. It was a lot harder to convince his family that they needed to go to the angel tree than Max had thought it would be. Fiona had a cold, his dad was exhausted from a double shift at the post office, and his mom had planned a night of laundry and an early bedtime. None of them wanted to venture out in the polar night air, even though the tree was only half a block away. "I promised Mr. Pink," Max pleaded, his eyes on the clock, which now read 6:46. "I don't understand any of this," his mom said with a sigh, "but I suppose a promise is a promise." What could Mr. Pink want, his dad wondered, slowly pulling on the winter jacket. He didn't say anything. Max's mom asked as she... He didn't say anything? Max's mom asked as she stuffed a complaining Fiona into a fleece vest and the second-hand coat she'd picked up at the church's thrift shop. "No," Max said, opening the door to the apartment in hopes that it would encourage his parents to hurry. He had had his own coat on for the past 10 minutes and was starting to sweat. "All right, let's go," his mom said, her voice tired. Max saw the dark circles under her eyes. His mom always had insomnia. That means she couldn't sleep when she was anxious about something, and from the looks of things she hadn't slept in weeks. His family made their way down the narrow stairs and out through the lobby. "It's too cold," Fiona whined. Max squelched the urge to give her a pinch. The town square was deserted as Max's family made their way over to the angel tree. A light snow was falling, the icy kind that was more crystally than flakes. Max could feel them clinging to his eyelashes and eyebrows. "So what are we waiting for?" his dad said. And then they saw it. A line of people walking around them, led by Mr. Pink. At first the others were in the shadows of the street lamps that hung on each corner of the square, but as they came closer, Max recognized Anne and Jim Bellows, who ran a local contracting firm, along with the town electrician and plumber, and Kira Cotler, who owned an architect firm. Max's heart was thumping hard in his chest as they came and stood before his family. "Thanks for coming out tonight," Mr. Pink said to Max and his family, "and we won't keep you wondering about why we've dragged you out in the cold. Come the first day of spring, these people," he gestured to the group gathered around him, "and a slew of helpers are going to start breaking ground on your new house." Max's mother gasped and grabbed his father's arm, which wasn't a great idea because his father looked like he was about to faint. "We wanted to gather here at the angel tree to tell you in person," Mr. Pink went on, "because this tree symbolizes what our community is about. And here, at this tree, the call for help is answered." Max's father still looked stunned, but his mom reached over and rested a hand on Max's back. "Did you put up a wish?" she asked softly. Max nodded, his throat suddenly too thick to speak. "I don't know if we can accept this," she said, turning back to Mr. Pink. "The insurance will only cover part of the expense, and..." Mr. Pink held up his hand. "We know," he said simply. "But the cost, your time," Max's father said, looking around. "It's too much to ask of any of you." We give it willingly, Mr. Pink said. And the group around him, their faces bathed in the light from the Christmas lights strung on the buildings around them, all nodded. Max's father opened his mouth to speak again, but his mom put her hand on his arm. Thank you, she said, her voice hoarse. Thank you so much for this incredible gift. Mr. Pink grinned. Merry Christmas, he said. Fiona stepped forward, looking up at Mr. Pink with wonder. Are you Santa? She asked. Everyone laughed, including Max, but as she looked around at the people gathered there to help his family, he did not feel like maybe Santa had just paid them an Earth visit. Oh, I'm sorry, let me read that over. Everyone laughed, including Max, but as he looked around at the people gathered there to help his family, he did feel like maybe Santa had just paid them an early visit. Then he glanced at the tree behind them, dark against the blue-black night sky, and knew that what had happened tonight was something even better because it was real. It was the angel tree that had brought together the people of Pine River to make his impossible wish come true. So now we have three. We have Lucy, her dog, Valentine, getting well. And we have Joe, whose mom's coming home from the Marines to spend Christmas with him. And we have Max, and his family's house is going to be built. Remember, it had burnt down? Let's see how long this other one is, chapter 14. Hold on a minute, we'll see if I can read it. I'm getting hoarse. We'll try it, okay? Chapter 14, 13 days until Christmas. So I'll pick you up in an hour, Lucy's mom So I'll pick you up in an hour? Lucy's mom asked as Lucy opened the door of her car on Friday after school, a frigid breeze slipping in from the parking lot of Pine Forest Christmas trees. I think that's enough time, Lucy said, stepping out and then holding the door for Valentine, who hopped out next to her. But I'm not sure. I don't mind waiting, her mom said. We want to be careful not to tire Valentine. Right, Lucy agreed, leaning down to brush her dog's head. The vet had okayed an hour or two of activity for Valentine, and Lucy wanted to be sure to follow these orders carefully so that Valentine could continue to heal. Thanks, Mom. Happy to do it, her mom said. It's about 10 steps to the front gate, but it looks like your friend is already coming to meet you. See you later, Lucy said, closing out the car door and following as Valentine began leading her to the gate. Hey, Lucy, Cammy said, her boots crunching in the snow. Hi, Lucy said. She heard a rustling sound, most likely Cammy, waving to her mom as she drove away. So we'll wait for Joe and then, oh, wow. Lucy was about to ask what had Cammy so excited when she smelled clean gym socks, fried eggs, and hot cocoa and heard Max's laugh. Surprised? He asked as he came up to them. I can't believe you're here, Cammy explained joyfully. Yeah, well, my angel tree wish came true, so I figured I owed it to the GB, the great benefactor, to be part of your big thank you celebration, Max said. Max always sounded cheerful, but today his voice was positively exuberant. What wish? Cammy said. Oh, no big deal. Just a whole new house, Max said. He was making light of it, but Lucy could hear that he was bouncing on his toes as he spoke. Cammy squealed in delight, and Lucy heard the soft sounds of her hugging Max. Oh, Lucy exclaimed, suddenly remembering her dad's new volunteer job. I think my dad is going to be helping out. Awesome, Max said. Tell him I said thanks. That's so cool, Cammy said, giving her arm a squeeze. And here's someone that's totally not cool, Max muttered. Lucy did not need to smell the approaching mix of laundry soap and lemon cleaner to know that Joe had arrived. "So we're all here," Cammy said cheerfully. "Let's go." Lucy followed as they walked through the gate of pine forest. People around them were laughing, and there was the feathery sound of families loading up Christmas trees to take home. Lucy had been coming here with her parents for years, so she knew that just inside was the fenced-off area where pre-cut trees were stacked. There was a small wooden cabin where people could buy hot chocolate or cider or wreaths when they paid for their trees, or just warm up before venturing out to the acres beyond, which were thick with growing pine trees of every shape and size. "So where should we start looking?" Max asked. "We should ask the owner if he knows anything about GB, the great benefactor," Joe said. "If Mr. St. Pierre knows anything, he won't say," Max said coolly. Lucy could feel Cammy tense next to her. "But maybe he'll say something that gives us a clue," Joe persisted. "That's a great idea," Cammy said quickly. Max sighed, but he didn't put up a fight. Lucy heard Mr. St. Pierre's fingers tapping on the old-fashioned cash register as they walked into the heat of the little cabin that smelled of cinnamon lace cider. Lucy took advantage of the moment to rest Valentine, who was panting slightly. Joe's sneakers padded closer to the wood stove, while Cammy stayed next to Lucy, and Max wandered around, unable to keep still. "How can I help you kids?" Mr. St. Pierre asked in his low voice a few moments later. Lucy's parents had described his wild mustache and flowing beard that had half the kids under 6 thinking he was Santa Claus, a role he often played for the town Christmas gala. Lucy hesitated, wondering how to explain that mission, but Cammy spoke up right away. "We're hoping to find out some information about the person behind the angel tree," she said, getting right to it. "I'm sorry, kids, but I can't help you with that." "We know it's supposed to be a secret," Cammy said, "but this is important. We want to do something to thank the person who's been working so hard for all these years." "I wish I could help, I truly do," he said, "but I have no idea who does it. Every year I get a hand-delivered letter that there's going to be a pickup for a tree that's already been selected. They must come in the middle of the night to choose the tree, mark it with a ribbon, and then pay a trucker to come get it and put it up in town. And I bet the trucker knows even less than I do. We're both paid in cash, and that's the end of it. Every year, that's how it goes." "Do you still have the letter?" Lucy asked. "No, it went out with the recycling weeks ago," Mr. St. Pierre said. A bell jingled as the door to the cabin opened and a family came in, 2 little kids running ahead and giggling. Lucy and Cammy turned to go, but then Joe spoke up. Could you tell us what section of the forest the tree was taken from this year?" "Sure," Mr. St. Pierre said. "And to be honest, I'm not sure anyone else has been back in that section. It's where we have our biggest trees, and we usually just sell a handful of them every year." "And you haven't sold any others yet?" Cammy asked excitedly. "Nope, not yet." There was the crinkly sound of paper as he handed something to Cammy. "Here's the map. The section you're interested in is all the way back here," he said. Lucy assumed he was pointing to a spot on the map, "so it doesn't get much traffic." "This is great," Cammy said. "Thanks so much, Mr. St. Pierre." The others voiced their thanks and headed back out into the cold for the trek to the far section of the forest. Valentine seemed energetic and happy as she pranced carefully through the snow, leading Lucy on a wide, clear path through the rows and rows of balsam fir, Scotch pine, blue spruce, and white pine trees, each with a slightly different scent. At first, they followed paths made by trails of footprints, The snow packed down tight under Lucy's feet. But by the time they reached their destination, the snow was untouched and harder to navigate. "No one's been here since last night's snow," Max said, his boots crunching on the crusty top layer, then breaking through with a crackle. "That's good," Cammy said. She had slowed down to stay next to Lucy and Valentine. "Except that any clues GB left last week would probably be covered," Max said. "Not necessarily," Joe said, clearly eager to disagree with Max. "What do you know about it?" Max snapped. "Is there ever snow where you came from? Is there even snow where you came from?" "Since we're here, let's look around," Cammy interrupted before things could get heated between Max and Joe. "Something might have gotten caught in one of the trees or something. Let's spread out and search." Lucy gave Valentine's lead a light tug, and the dog, who had been resting, struggled to her feet. Lucy knew walking in the high snow was hard for Valentine, and decided she would only cover a little ground. It wasn't like she was going to find a clue anyway. She gave Valentine a free lead and let the dog choose their direction and their pace. They walked through evenly spaced trees on a low slope of land. The branches rustled around them, and farther off, Lucy could hear Max and Cammy talking and laughing. But then Valentine tensed and picked up her pace. Clearly she had spotted something interesting, and Lucy hoped it wasn't a squirrel out searching for a snack. Valentine was extremely well trained and would never chase a squirrel, but she did like to look at them and yip. It wasn't a squirrel that had caught the lab's attention, though. It was something buried in the snow. Valentine burrowed her snout in, the ice crunching as she dug down, and a moment later she pulled something up, shaking off the snow with a musical clink of the dog tags on her collar. "What is it, girl?" Lucy asked, holding out her gloved hand. Valentine set the object carefully in Lucy's palm. Lucy took off her glove so that she could feel what it was. It was covered with a thin sheen of ice, but as the warmth of Lucy's fingers melted it, it revealed a thick rectangle of leather, about 2 inches wide and 8 inches long. Delighted with her find, she hurried back to the spot where the others were gathering. "I didn't see anything," Cammy was saying gloomily as Lucy and Valentine approached. "I guess it was—" She broke off as Lucy held up the leather strap. "I found something," Lucy said. Actually, Valentine did. I guess she smelled it or something, because she started digging through the snow and came up with this. "What is it?" Cammy asked as the three of them crowded around Lucy and Valentine. "I'm not sure." She had it in her mouth. "Take a look, and you tell me." Cammy reached over and took the small object from Lucy. Both Joe and Max leaned in for a closer look. "I think it's a bookmark." Excuse me, Cammy said after a moment. "It's swollen from the snow, but you can see carvings in it like ivy going up the sides." "Do you think it belonged to the great benefactor?" Lucy asked. "It seems like a safe bet, doesn't it?" Cammy asked, her voice buoyant. "Guys, we have our first clue. So what does it tell us?" Joe asked as they started back toward the parking lot and the road to town. His teeth were nearly chattering. "That GB is a reader, obviously," Max said in a withering tone. "Yeah, but it tells us even more than that," Cammy said before Joe could respond. "I mean, a fancy bookmark like this tells us that GB really cares about books. Read books, too, not real books, too, not e-books." "That's probably a sign that GB's a little older," Lucy said, thinking that her parents read print books while her teenage cousins all read e-books. "Good point," Cammy said. And also, it could, excuse me, and also it could mean it's someone with a huge home library, Lucy said, slipping a little on an icy spot but righting herself quickly. You would only get a nice bookmark if you had a lot of books to read. They were back in the more populated section of the farm. There were voices around them, and walking was easier now that there were footprints to follow. Lucy could tell Valentine was tired, and she took a moment to rub the dog's floppy ears. After all, Valentine had been the hero of the day, finding their very first clue. "Let's meet up tomorrow for more investigating," Cammy said. "The angel tree, 10 o'clock." The others agreed, but Valentine was panting again, and Lucy knew she would not need to let her dog rest the next day, so that she would be ready for school on Monday. Lucy wasn't sure if it made sense for her to go along tomorrow without the dog for help. She was pretty sure she'd just drag everybody down with people needing to take care of her instead of looking for more clues. Plus, she had plans to go over to Anya's in the afternoon. But as the others waited for her reply, Lucy changed her mind. Finding GB was important, and Anya would understand. Plus, Lucy had helped find the very first clue, which meant she was being helpful. She was probably worrying over nothing. "I'll be there," she said. Ah, this is getting good, isn't it? We have to remember. Let's see, Joe likes to read. So if it's somebody that had a bookmark and likes to read, then maybe it's somebody that knows Joe, like that librarian lady that worries about him and his colds. It's very good. So tomorrow night we'll read chapter 15, 12 Days Until Christmas. And this is the angel tree. We have angel trees in our stores around here where you can put a child's name and what they might need for Christmas, but it's not like big wishes usually. This is kind of cool, isn't it? And all of their wishes have been good ones, meaningful ones, not just, I wish for a big red bike or something, good things for their family. So I'll see you guys tomorrow night. I hope you'll come and listen to me. If it's not tomorrow night, it will be Friday night, but I'll try, okay? And I'll see you. I love you guys. Be good.